Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko with you, joined by the guys. Tariq, Spence, how you doing this week?
Terrible because my Giants don't look. Yeah, terrible. Giants don't look good. My Mets don't look good. I'm not sure if my Knicks are going to make a trade, so I'm terrible.
Well, that's weird because last time we talked to you, you were celebrating the Braves. You come to town. I know you think you can't do. By the way, another pitcher just got hurt.
I know. Trust me. And
wearing Joe Ferguson today.
Yeah, Joe Ferguson. Well, we know it's the Jim Kelly, and there's a reason why. Tell you about it in Unfinished Business.
You know what was funny? I remember when the whole thing with Kelly gave him 12 and stuff, and I thought, that's really too bad for Joe Ferguson because on his own and in his own right, he was a pretty good quarterback. His second or third, probably best the team ever had.
Oh, yeah, I think that's a fair statement. He was the Doug Flutie of his era. Did just enough where people remember his name.
And by the way, people are Googling him right now because they're just like, what? Who?
People know Joe Ferguson.
He got him the playoffs. He was a playoff guy.
Yeah, like
Chuck Knox's team, early 80s.
Nothing? No? Oh, I just got breaking news. The Mets, another pitcher got hurt.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no, okay.
Two more by the end of the show.
Hey, look, let's, first thing is that, boy, isn't it nice to know that the PED scandal didn't go away with the last decade.
Nor the circus that goes around the storytelling of how the person got caught with the PD.
Fernando Tatis.
I don't know what to say about this whole situation. I just know that I've learned a lot about ringworm. I've learned a lot about what treats it and what doesn't treat it. I also learned a lot about the players possibly being injured even though they have multi-million-dollar contracts and shouldn't be on motorcycles, i.e. we've seen that terrible story happen many, many times before. But I'll leave that alone. I'm a little bit concerned here because this is an 80-game suspension. This will follow Tatis for the rest of his career. We all know that. But I feel bad that there's so many different people trying to defend him, and the Padres are in a spot where we just acquired a great player, and I feel terrible for the San Diego Padre fans because you're going to have to get your Fernando Tatis bobblehead another day.
Yeah, they canceled bobblehead days. Look, the guy's got the world on a platter. He was one of the most popular players in all the major leagues, not just San Diego. And he does this to himself.
Okay, I think you're being a little naive in just making that statement, right? Because you're assuming he just started doing it recently. Well, what gives you that assumption? I mean, how long did players go in past generations? I mean, entire careers. Cycling, and we have no idea.
But it's there. I mean, we still see the reaction people have to A-Rod and Clemens and Bonds. If you're Tatis, how do you let yourself wander into that?
Okay, well, let's look it out this way, right? If you're talking from a cheating standpoint, yes, absolutely, you have a right to be upset as a pure baseball fan, but let's talk about from a human standpoint, right? Like, if we're talking about American baseball players, most of them come from the high school ranks without a college education. If we're talking about foreign baseball players, it's an even worse living situation. So you're telling me that I can roll the dice and take my chance to make this money 10,000 times what I would make annually, maybe more, or I can increase those odds substantially by taking this thing that's cheating.
And I bought that the first time around. I really did, because it was like, Duffy and either of you guys could take a pill that would make you the most popular, famous, and rich broadcaster there was.
Don't need it.
Whatever. Yeah, I know that. But we've seen what happens to these guys. It's like the second generation should not be making these mistakes, in my mind.
Well, Tatis, look at his bank account now. He got caught after he signed his contract, right? So who's the idiot? Well, you can call him a cheater all you want. He will drive by you in his Lamborghini on the way to his entire family who's taken care of for the rest of their lives while you yell cheater at him.
And guaranteed contract on top of this. This does bring into question now, what do you do with players that may have used some sort of stuff and now the second half of their career is, well, we know you used something, so let's see if you live up to those real numbers. It's going to be a lot of pressure on this kid to perform well over the next few years, and a lot of players that get caught, whether it's the spider tack or something else that gave them the advantage, i.e. Garrett Cole, if there's something to the fact that they had the advantage when they were signing that contract.
Well, and that's just it, right? If he comes back and he's able to perform the way that he performed before the thing, okay, then your argument of why did you fall into it or how did you make this mistake, that's valid. If he comes back and falls off a cliff, well, then you have your answer as to the ethical question that you ask in the first place.
I know, because Tariq told me. Did you know before last week that ringworm was not an actual worm?
My wife is a dermatologist, so yes, but I would understand why you guys would not get that.
No, he did. I didn't. Yeah. So it's like, am I the dope here?
I guess yes. I guess you are. Yeah.
The last thing about this is like, how much do you hate having Daddy get involved? A former major leaguer himself.
Yeah, I mean, I get it though, right? Like, look. Who else is going to defend him at this point, right? You're going to have fans running their mouths. You're a parent. You know when you see your child against the ropes, and maybe he isn't totally in the loop as to what's going on either. It's a natural knee-jerk reaction to defend your kid.
I will say this, though. The fact that this is a young man, this is his career, you got to take it. And I will say this. if he was able to come out and admit that he made a mistake, and I think he's so likable, he would have been able to get over it. Now, running from the story makes it look a lot worse, and Dad coming out doesn't help.
But he's running faster because he was using PEDs.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good point to end there.
None for long.
Talking Buffalo Bills next. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Our Buffalo Bills segment is brought to you by Ralph Honda, for 3 generations and celebrating 50 years as New York's first and oldest Honda dealer. Visit Ralph Honda today and find out how we do Honda right at ralphhonda.com. Preseason started off pretty well, don't you think, for the Bills?
For everybody but Case Keenum, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, look, I know it's one half of a preseason game in the first week, but...
It was fun, I got to say.
Oh my God, I had a blast.
It was fun.
All right, I'm gonna make an admission here.
Oh,
I'm not
boy.
proud of this.
Here
I'm not
we
proud
go.
of this. The Bills were -1.5 with the Colts coming to town. They hadn't lost a preseason game in 2 seasons. I bet preseason football. And what a ride that game was. Come on, guys. What a roller coaster. Holding on to the plane's engine thing. Yeah, no, it was a blast. It was great to see him out there again. And how great did the team's second and third defenders look against the starting offense? 2 former Super Bowl quarterbacks, and Matt Ryan and Kevin Kolb with the Indianapolis Colts.
Wait a minute. Last week on this very fine radio program, the man was concerned about, worried about
We're actually
preseason.
on television.
Listen, what radio? I'm sure he said it on his radio show.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure he said it here. That, I just don't want anybody hurt. And now he's betting on preseason games? What is wrong with you?
Hold on, man. Hold on. Wait, no. I don't want anybody of significance to the final record when it comes to how their athletic abilities will affect the roster hurt. Case Keenum gets hurt. Look, I don't want to see the guy get hurt, but
after those interceptions you do.
I know. How much of a difference?
You can't wish that on
No,
anybody.
you wish it, but that he wouldn't play.
There were 3 things that shocked me in this game. First one is how great Boogie Basham looked on that defensive line. Holy cow, if you're going to get production like that from him, and you've got Ed Oliver and Von Miller and, Jordan Phillips ahead of him. Second thing was how well the receiver depth looks on that team. I mean, even in the fourth quarter, you got guys that aren't going to make this roster. There's going to be significant wide receiver cuts from this team that will contribute to other players in the regular season. The third thing that shocked me the most was how close Matt Barkley and Case Keenum looked to each other. Matt Barkley didn't take a snap in the NFL last season, and he looked like a far superior quarterback. Granted, you're playing against deeper depth, but he made that offense move. Case Keenum, 3 turnovers. They had that one drive at the beginning of the game, and the ball didn't move after that.
Let me run it to you because we're at a bit of a disadvantage. The second preseason game has been played, and we're before that right now. But do you see any possibility of Matt Barkley being the number 2?
Yes, absolutely. After what we saw last week. Now, I don't know what he's going to do this week, and Case Keenum is an NFL quarterback, so let's give him another week or maybe 2 before you decide to make that move. But, I like the fact that they're giving these quarterbacks a chance. You give a chance for Allen to rest. Take it easy. You get your running back situation, get that sort of situated right. You got 3, maybe 4 running backs going into the season, which sounds great. I love the way it starts for the Buffalo Bills. Just get to game 1.
Yeah, at the end, seeing the kids and seeing names that you haven't seen before. It's like play after play, just on both sides of the ball.
Matt Araiza, the punt guard, 82-yard punt. Did you see that punt?
Yeah.
Did you see that? Please be able to hold. Please be able to hold.
It's like a different guy this week.
It was the first punt of his NFL career, went 82 freaking yards, man.
I can't believe it. Is he on PEDs?
I heard the sound from my backyard. That's how much of a boom that punt was.
Yeah, that was
You
pretty
still got 3 more weeks before the start of the season. Just hold on, buddy.
Lots of punts.
The Buffalo Bills segment was brought to you by Ralph Honda. Like it or not, is next. Here's the Press Box Trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Have I got a great getaway for you and the whole family? It's inexpensive and nearby. Mike O'Brien, your getaway guy. Look for the Getaway Guy on Facebook. The Getaway Guy on Facebook. It's a great road trip just for you.
Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Are you facing criminal charges from a DWI and feel that you never imagined it could happen to you? Contact attorneys with years of experience as prosecutors and defenders. Contact Ganguly Brothers Law today for a free consultation. You can put your trust in us.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Our Like It or Not segment brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law. Attorneys with years of experience defending the accused. Don't go unprepared. Contact Ganguly Brothers Law today. Tariq, like it or not, changing the landscape of the best teams in baseball right now.
Well, for the Dodgers, I don't think you have to really worry about it with Buehler out. He wasn't really pitching that well. So that's really going to be interesting for them down the line, especially with their starting pitch. For my Mets, Carrasco's a big one. We got Walker as well. I'm really nervous. I'm really nervous about the pitching for the New York Mets, not because I'm a Mets fan, but because I'm a Mets fan. And the other reason why is because for Carrasco, I'd love to have him come back. Before he got injured, he was pitching extremely well. July, I think, he started a great run, I think a 1.69 ERA. The Mets won all of his games within that time frame. So that's going to be a big one. And when he comes back, it'll be at the end of the season, hopefully against the Marlins. That's 5 weeks. It's a 4 to 6 week injury. If he comes back in that 6 week, you've got Atlanta and the Nationals to round out the season. You don't want him coming back in the playoffs. So that's a really, really tough injury for the next 5 to 6 weeks for my Mets.
I would have thought that for the Mets that the pitching injury situation wouldn't involve DeGrom.
Rush him back too early, you could re-injure him, lose him for the playoffs. Bring him back too late, he might be too rusty and not ready to pitch. So this is going to be a tough one for that injury.
In the American League, since early July, third worst record in baseball, the New York Yankees.
Yeah, no, I saw that. How about the Rays and the Orioles are ahead of them division in the last 20 games? It's amazing.
Is there something like permanent to be concerned there if you're a Yankees fan?
I mean, I would blame the manager, but you guys know where I stand on that.
I haven't heard the Aaron Boone in a while.
What the heck's going on here? But now he's upset. That's what it would sound like.
All right, like it or not, look, the NBA put out their Christmas schedule, got the 10 premier teams. So they're playing these games on Christmas. They're not playing on Election Day, which I found a little interesting.
So I bring you. I think that point's great because when I initially heard that they were going to pause all games on Election Day, as someone who deeply believes in the democratic process, I thought, good for them. This is fantastic. You're bringing attention to the fact you should be there, and you're not distracting from anything going on. But you do bring up a great point. I mean, you're playing on Christmas Day. You've always played on Christmas Day, and I guess the NBA
Separation Church and State falls
right
in,
and that's fine. And listen, in the defense of what they're doing here, way more Americans are eligible to vote than would be celebrating Christmas if you want to come down to a numbers game. However, the NBA has put itself now in a position where they're deciding what days are sacred and what days aren't, and you are going to make some people very upset when you do that.
Well, the NFL's already done that. But the other end of this, too, I find is...
The NFL's already done that.
Well, basically, I mean, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Thanksgiving, and all the other days.
And I really thought when we went through the COVID thing and they were playing games on Tuesday or Wednesday, honest God, I thought that was going to stick.
Well, I mean, it will, depending on the ratings, which I think this is really all about here. Think about where the NBA season really begins. NBA Christmas Day is that day. I know full well they play games right around Halloween and towards into November, but they're not high-rated games. Who really cares? Plus, all 30 teams are going to play the day before. So it's not like you're going to be like, you only need a couple NBA games here. All 30 teams are going to play the day before and rest the next day.
You're right. I will say, though, man, you have to be honest here. When it comes to being progressive as far as social and political ideas throughout the history of these leagues, right? The NBA is number one. Right? The NBA seems to be out in front of everything that is going on years before it happens, whether it's playing overseas, whether it's having large fan bases.
I feel like they really know who they are.
You make a great point there. You make a great point. I mean, football tries to grab everybody. Baseball can't identify where their fans are. The NHL is like locked itself in a closet, the lights out, they can't find the knob. The NBA, you're right. They have a feeling of what they do.
And it's a Tuesday night. Come on, what do you really have planned on a Tuesday night? And they're not telling you to vote.
It's a hot NBA
They're
night.
not telling you to vote for it. They're just saying you should vote.
You can't appreciate the symbolism of what they're doing here? You don't think it's important?
I love it.
Okay.
I'm fine with it. I'm good with it. I have no problem with it.
Our Like It or Not segment brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law. Unfinished Business is next.
All about business. The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. McArdle's is open 7 days a week with dining available indoors and out, takeout and delivery. Come home to McArdle's.
Unfinished Business is brought to you by Greg the Roofer. Greg will meet or beat any competitor's price and can finance you with 0 down. Call today or visit gregtheroofer.com. Better roof, better price. Better call Greg today.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us on the Rochester Press Box. It's time for Unfinished Business. Pat, start us off.
Jim Kelly had his golf tournament this week. NFL legends everywhere. One of them, Drew Bledsoe, former Bills quarterback. He was asked if he could talk to Josh Allen right now, what advice he would give him. Drew Bledsoe giving Josh Allen advice. And he pretty much said, the only thing I would tell him is get down and get out of bounds. And everyone laughed. And it's funny because Josh Allen doesn't get down and get out of bounds till you think about who gave him that advice. Drew Bledsoe didn't get down and get out of bounds. Because of that, week 2 in 2001, Mo Lewis opened a hole inside his chest that was bleeding a pint of blood an hour. It almost killed him. If it wasn't for one doctor realizing he didn't have a concussion, Drew Bledsoe could have died on the sidelines of that football game. And look, when it comes to a football aspect, we all remember what happened from there. A guy no one ever heard of named Tom Brady shows up. Bill Belichick wins his first Super Bowl with Brady, and everything takes off from there. Bledsoe shows up in Buffalo. Think about the butterfly effect if Drew Bledsoe would have taken his own advice and gotten down and gotten out of bounds. The Patriots had only won 5 games the season before that. They were 0-2 in that game. It's possible that Bill Belichick gets fired after that season is over. We may have never heard the name Tom Brady because you wouldn't see the field behind a guy that a year before signed a record $103 million contract in Drew Bledsoe. If Drew Bledsoe would have taken his advice and gotten down and gotten out of bounds, we wouldn't have lived that nightmare we've lived for the last 20 years. So Josh, when Drew Bledsoe tells you get down and get out of bounds, listen to Drew Bledsoe.
Listening to Aaron Rodgers is why we are where we are. Why is Aaron Rodgers yelling at wide receivers and players that don't know where to go? Let's just say he had one in Davante Adams. If he had just convinced himself to just stay with the Packers, would probably still be with the Packers as well. Remember, his indecisiveness led to Davante Adams, a Pro Bowl player, deciding to leave. Had he decided he was going to stay, maybe Adams would have figured out he was going to stay. Then he would have had some leadership at your wide receiver position. I'm sick and tired of Aaron Rodgers blaming everybody else for what he's got to go through, and I got to do everything myself. Here's one thing. Stay committed to the team or your career or whatever you want to do. But don't be upset when players decide to make a career move based on your indecision.
When the Rochester Red Wings lost a franchise record 19 straight games earlier this month, a couple of things happened. First, there was no noticeable drop-off in attendance. In fact, the games actually became more compelling as the team tried to stop the streak. And second, the fans remained supportive. When the Wings finally won, they got a standing ovation. Why is that? Maybe we see ourselves mirrored in the baseball team's dysfunction. These are not the best of times. Consider where we find ourselves as a country, and it's not a pretty sight. And for a minor league baseball team, frankly, the stakes just aren't very high. So it's easy to view the team's plight in a sympathetic light. Back in 1962, the New York Mets were the most lovable of losers in a city that was still hurting from the departure of the Dodgers and the Giants for the West Coast. The very first edition of the Mets was not a pretty sight. The Mets were last in all of baseball in hitting, pitching, and fielding. Statistics back that up, so it probably isn't a surprise that they lost a modern-day record 120 games. They lost their first 9 and followed that up with losing streaks of 17, 13, and 11. They had not one but 2 20-game losing pitchers, one of whom Roger Craig famously said, quote, "You have to be pretty good to lose 20 games." And he would know. He did it twice. And this is not the result of playing for the future. The 62 Mets were the second oldest team in baseball that year. In early May, New York purchased Marv Throneberry from Baltimore. He became the fan favorite. Marvelous Marv, as he was called, hit a team-high 16 home runs and made 17 errors at first base. In a game played in June, Throneberry hit what would have ordinarily been a triple, but he was called out for missing first base. As 72-year-old manager Casey Stengel shuffled out to protest, he was cautioned not to argue too vehemently. Throneberry had also missed second base. You can't make this stuff up. Yet, the fans were enthusiastic and turned out to see this team play. In 1962, the Mets outdrew 8 of the established baseball franchises while competing against the crosstown Yankees, who were on their way to another World Series title in the Mickey Mantle era. Through it all, Stengel kept perspective. Quote, "Without losers, where would winners be?" he said. It is no less true today. That is Unfinished Business, and that is our program. Love the Drew Bledsoe history lesson. That was awesome.
It hurts so much seeing it make. Oh my God, that's fun. Wait a minute, Drew.
Drew Bledsoe.
The butterfly effect.
No.
I'm so sorry about Tom Brady. Can you let it go now?
After we beat him in the Super Bowl this year, absolutely.
Whoa,
Guys,
guess who's talking
thank you very
Super
much.
Bowl now?
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week in the Rochester Press Box.